Namaste, my name is Pranav Roshan and in this video we're going to talk about Marx jurisprudence. So before discussing Marx jurisprudence, I want to quote his famous statement from Communist Manifesto. So addressing the bourgeoisie in his Communist Manifesto, Marx stated that your jurisprudence is but the will of your class, made into law for all. A will whose essential character and direction are determined by the economic conditions of existence of your class. Now let's try to analyze what does Marx mean when he says your jurisprudence is but the will of your class and the will of your class made into law. So Marx is addressing bourgeoisie. So bourgeois basically, the bourgeois' will has been manifested into the law. So in this statement we can see that Marx is saying that the law is an instrument of coercion because bourgeois is harassing and coercing the lower classes for their own gain, right? So let's start Marx jurisprudence in the light of the law is an instrument of coercion. The Communist Manifesto is an outline of principles and a call to action, a combination of the theory and practice of revolution, which Marx considered essential if society was to be transformed. So, hitherto is a word which means up till now, yeah, or until now. So, hitherto he had declared, or up till now he declared that philosophers have interpreted the world. The point, however, is to change it. So, here you see Marx is stating that till date, whatever interpretation that we are having regarding anything and particular to law is that philosophers has interpreted all of the world in their own light, but let's change it. So Marx has studied jurisprudence, philosophy and history at the University of Bonn and Berlin and had been influenced profoundly by the teachings of G.W.F. Hegel, which he adapted and transformed in the creation of his own world outlook. And that is why more often than not Helen said that Marx has turned Hegel upside down. He took the teachings of Hegel and used it for his own sake. Embedded in that outlook is a unique interpretation of law as reflecting economic relationship within society. That is why sometimes it has been said as economic analysis of law. But no, it's not merely economic analysis. It is class analysis. It is historical analysis, and it's an analysis about the discrimination, about the difference. So we can also say about Marx jurisprudence is a difference analysis within the society. The corpus, the body of Marx's jurisprudence grew out of his general philosophy, and some of its essence is contained the aforementioned quote, where he is addressing to bourgeois that your will has been manifested into law. Now, Marx's jurisprudential thought is based on the doctrines which comprised his philosophical outlook: dialectical materialism, the laws of economic development, and the materialistic conception of history. Now, what is dialectical materialism? So, dialectical materialism is Marx's version of the basis of laws of change. It combines a materialist philosophy and the method of interpretation known as dialectics, which is a highly systematized mode of reasoning involving the examination and resolution of contradictions within phenomena. Now, Marx materialism embraces all phenomena, natural and social. What is phenomena? Phenomena is nothing but occurrence, right? So natural phenomena, that is natural occurrence, constitute a unity. Everything is in motion and nothing exists as an isolate. Nothing exists in isolation. The basis of a system of law, its purpose and its manifestation, has to be comprehended in terms of their relationship and changing nature. The Marxist jurists follows Marx in rejecting idealist jurisprudence. So ideas can have no meaning or significance outside a materialistic framework of analysis. And legal thought has to be interpreted in relation to the social fabric within which it was conceived and nurtured. So Hegel's idea, like I said earlier, Marx was heavily influenced by Hegel's idea of philosophy. So Hegel gave a lot of importance to idealism. That word exists in the idea. The good and bad and the perception, it's all perception, and it exists in your idea. Marx categorically rejects this proposition and says it's not idea but the material which is relevant. It is material. If you have material, you can have the uh, generosity of that, of claiming that you have an idea, right? So the laws of economic development reflect fundamental antagonism. What is antagonism? It's nothing but contradictions. So fundamental contradictions between those who own the instruments of production, the bourgeois, and those who own the nothing, and those who own nothing save their labor power, that is proletariat, or the farmers or the peasants. See, the proletariat are exploited by the bourgeois, and the mode of exploitation characterizes the laws of economic development. The methodological exploitation sets in motion struggles which can be resolved only by expropriation of the bourgeois, together with the abolition of the legal system which has assisted in securing bourgeois class rule. The materialistic conception of history rejects the view of historical development as man's movement towards his spiritual destiny or a struggle towards perfect freedom. For Marx, history is a bleak record of conflict of class against class, and with the law taking sides. Law always favor powerful. Law always takes sides of one who is having the resources, having the control over resources. The laws of historical development are inexorable in their operation. Society began with conditions in which a legal system was unnecessary because there was common ownership of property. Then slave owning society followed with laws recognizing and protecting the ownership of slaves. Then medieval feudalism followed, and in turn, this medieval feudalism in turn produced capitalism with a developed legal system. Now here, look at the look at the inherent meaning what Marx is saying. When there was medieval feudalism, let's take example of French Revolution. French Revolution was an uprising fueled by or favored by middle class. Why so? Because middle class was thinking about themselves only. They wanted to snatch the power from the upper class and want to restore power within the middle class. And then further, there was no filtration. There was no downward filtration. Now, revolutionary activity will produced from capitalist society, the socialist, classless order in which a legal system will no longer be needed. Because with the removal of economic contradictions, crime and other antisocial activities will disappear. So Marx culminations against bourgeois and are intended to remind them of the transitory nature of their society and their legal system. It is from the Marxist thesis of base and superstructure the significance of law emerges. The basis of a given social order is its economic foundation, which is characterized by relations of production. The relations are independent of men's will and are determined by the mode in which the factors of production, the totality, are organized and exploited by those who own the instrument of production. Now, the culmination of all these relations of productions constitute the economic structure of society. Now, on this foundation, society erects a superstructure over which all of the other structure was based, which includes ideas, ideologies, theories, philosophies relating to religion, ethics, art, law, societies, whatsoever, and therefore creates as a part of superstructure, and this collectively known as law. Now, the legal ideology, according to Marx, owes little to so-called eternal categories, innate idea of justice, or immutable concepts of right. Now, it is an identifiable part of the social superstructure built on the foundation of a certain mode of economic production and mirroring the antagonisms or contradictions of a society characterized by class domination and suppression. The emergence and growth of the common law rooted in the mores of an exploitative agricultural society. The growth of theories of natural law are to be understood solely by reference to the framework of economic relationships in which they took root and flourished. It is the relationships engendered by society's economy which determines social consciousness and therefore the nature of legal ideology. Now, there is this work of Marx, a contribution to the critique of political economy, wherein Marx declares that it is not the consciousness of men that determine their existence, but their social existence that determines their consciousness. Now, Romer has commented on this by saying that law and politics implement what the economic structure requires, right? And the economic structure is in turn required by underlying productive forces. Now, legal developments are determined by two step back by material economic developments. Now, you'll see what economy wants, law and politics will provide. Now, implicit in Marx's criticism of bourgeois law is his notion of change. Marx is absolutely critical of the notion of law, bourgeois law. He gives no exemptions to law, class, or state from the workings of historical development. Now, Marx propounds that when bourgeois will ultimately fail, then will come a radical transformation in the role of state and law. Now, the new victorious socialist society will see a replacement of the government of persons by the administration of things. Now, mankind in this new classless society will have no need of state apparatus. There will be no classes because there will be common property, and therefore no task for state organs of repression. Exploitation and poverty are the root causes of crime because they cause alienation. They alienate the poor ones from the mainstream, and this will vanish, as will the jurisprudential ideology, which sought to explain these phenomena as permanent aspects of social existence. So, in effect, the state will not be abolished but will merely wither away. So, with this, we have come to end of Marxist jurisprudence. There are obviously various criticisms of Marxist jurisprudence that we will see in coming sessions. But in the next session, I will talk about feminist jurisprudence. Till then, thank you.